The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal just as I zipped the medical backpack for the third time, checking each pocket like a ritual. Orange pill bottle, there. White box with the hospital label, there. Doctor's letter folded into the clear sleeve, there. I didn't trust my memory anymore, not after the last 6 months. Not after leukemia taught me that forgetting one thing could cost everything. Dad, Noah whispered, tugging my sleeve. He was 8, small for his age, baseball cap pulled low over a head that hadn't seen hair in months. Can I have the window? You've got it, buddy, I said, forcing a smile that felt heavier than my carry-on. Just like last time. We shuffled down the jet bridge with the rest of the passengers, the smell of recycled air already creeping in. Our destination was 3 states away, Children's Oncology Center, the only hospital that could handle the next phase of Noah's treatment. We'd made this trip before. I knew the routine. I knew how fragile the comm was. What I didn't know was how fast it could shatter. The plane was a narrow body, 3 seats on each side. We were in row 14, window and middle. Noah settled in, pressing his forehead against the glass. Watching the ground crew move like ants below, I slid the medical backpack under the seat in front of me, wedging it with my foot so it wouldn't shift. A woman dropped into the aisle seat beside me with a huff. She was maybe mid-50s, perfectly coiffed blonde hair, oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head, even though we were indoors. She wore a cream-colored blazer over a floral blouse, gold bracelets clinking as she adjusted herself, the kind of person who took up space without asking. She glanced at Noah, then at me, then at the backpack. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "Is that going to be there the whole flight?" "Yes," I replied, polite but firm. "It's medical." She wrinkled her nose. "Medical? That doesn't sound safe." "What kind of medical?" I felt my jaw tighten. "My son's medication." Noah turned slightly, eyes flicking toward her, then back to the window. The woman sniffed. "Well, I hope it doesn't leak or something. Some of us have allergies." I didn't respond. ID learned that engaging only made things worse. The seatbelt sign dinged on. The plane began to push back from the gate. Flight attendants walked the aisle, checking belts, offering practiced smiles. One of them paused near us, glanced at Noah, and gave him a small wave. He waved back shyly. "Everything okay here?" she asked. "Yes, thank you," I said quickly. The woman beside me said nothing, but her eyes lingered on the backpack like it had personally offended her. As the engines roared and the plane taxied, I felt the familiar knot in my chest, part anxiety, part exhaustion. Traveling with a sick child was like walking on glass. Every movement mattered. We took off smoothly, the city dropping away beneath us. Noah grinned, that pure, unfiltered joy only kids still had. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then the woman leaned toward me. "I don't think it's appropriate to have prescription drugs just out like that," she said in a low voice. "There are rules." I turned to her. "Ma'am, they're secured, labeled, and approved. We travel with them all the time." She crossed her arms. "I've been on many flights. I've never seen anyone bring a whole pharmacy on board." I took a slow breath. "My son has leukemia." That got her attention. She blinked, then looked at Noah again, more closely this time. The cap, the pale skin, the faint bruising on his wrist from 4 lines. "Well," she said after a beat, "I'm sorry about that. But rules are rules." I stared at her, stunned by the casual cruelty. What rule says my child can't have his medication? She didn't answer. She just looked away, lips pursed, as if she'd already decided she was right. The flight attendants finished service, and the cabin settled into that quiet hum of cruising altitude. Noah dozed off, his head leaning against my arm. I adjusted the blanket over him, careful not to wake him. That's when I felt it. A shift near my feet, the faint brush of fabric. I looked down just as the backpack moved, sliding slightly toward the aisle. My heart jumped. I reached down, pulling it back. The zipper was open. I froze. I knew I'd zipped it 3 times. I looked at the woman. She was staring straight ahead, hands folded in her lap, face unreadable. "Did you touch my bag?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She didn't turn. "Don't accuse me of things." I opened the bag fully. The orange pill bottle was gone. For a second, my brain refused to process it. I dug through the bag, fingers shaking. The white box still there. The paperwork still there. But the chemo support medication, the one Noah needed twice a day to prevent severe complications, gone. My pulse roared in my ears. I turned to her, no longer calm. "You took it," she scoffed. "That's ridiculous." "You were the only one near it," I said. "Give it back. Now." She finally faced me, eyes cold. "I did you a favor. That stuff doesn't belong on a plane. You should thank me." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "That medication keeps my son alive," I said, my voice breaking despite my effort. "He needs it. Now." Noah stirred, blinking awake. "Dad," he murmured. I swallowed hard. "It's okay, buddy." The woman leaned back, clearly satisfied. "If it's that important, the airline can handle it when we land." "We're at 30,000 feet, I said, barely containing myself. "You stole a controlled medication from a child with cancer." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. Everyone has a story." I hit the call button. The chimes sounded louder than it should have. A flight attendant appeared within seconds, her expression shifting as she took in my face. "Sir, what's wrong?" "My son's medication was taken," I said. "By her." The woman laughed. "This is harassment. He's making wild accusations." The attendant's eyes flicked between us. "Ma'am, did you take anything from his bag?" "Absolutely not," she snapped. "And even if I did, I'd be within my rights to report unsafe materials." The attendant's smile vanished. "Sir, what medication?" I pulled out the doctor's letter with trembling hands. "This. Without it, he can have severe reactions. We were instructed never to miss a dose." The attendant read quickly, her face paling. "How long until the next dose?" "Less than an hour," I said. She straightened. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." The woman crossed her arms. "I'm not going anywhere." The attendant's voice hardened. "Then we escalate." What happened next unfolded faster than I could process. Another attendant arrived. Then the purser. Voices were hushed, but urgent. The woman grew louder, indignant, insisting on her rights, on her HOA authority, on how she knew how things worked. That was the first time she mentioned it. "I'm the president of my homeowners association," she declared. "I deal with violations all the time. I know when something's wrong." The purser stared at her. "You're not in your neighborhood, ma'am." Minutes later, the captain's voice came over the intercom. Not calm, not routine. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. We have a security situation on board. Please remain seated." Noah gripped my hand. "Dad, are we in trouble?" I squeezed back. "No, buddy. You're safe." But my heart was pounding, because I knew this wasn't just an argument anymore. This was federal. And whoever had my son's medication had made a mistake far bigger than she understood. Somewhere behind the cockpit door, decisions were being made, and the plane was about to become very quiet. The seatbelt sign blinked on just as the plane reached cruising altitude, a soft chime echoing through the cabin. Outside the small oval window, the sky stretched endlessly, calm blue, indifferent to the storm that was quietly building inside row 18. My son, Evan, sat beside me, his head resting against my shoulder. He was pale, thinner than a child his age should be, his dark hair only just beginning to grow back after months of chemotherapy. His leukemia treatments had been brutal, but today's flight was supposed to be a small victory. traveling to a specialized hospital across the country for a new trial treatment that could change everything. In the seat pocket in front of me was a black insulated pouch. Inside it, Evan's medication, oral chemo tablets, anti-nausea meds, and emergency steroids, strictly timed, irreplaceable, and impossible to obtain mid-flight. ID checked that pouch at least a dozen times since boarding. I checked it again. Still there. I let out a breath. I hadn't realized I was holding Daddy. Evan murmured, eyes half open. Are we almost there? Not yet, buddy, I said softly. But you're doing great. He smiled weakly and closed his eyes again. That's when I heard the voice behind us. You need to move your bag. I turned to see a woman leaning forward from the row behind. Late 40s, designer scarf, oversized sunglasses, perched on her head, even though we were inside. Her lips were pursed in irritation. I'm sorry? I asked. That bag, she said sharply, pointing at the pouch partially under my seat. It's taking up shared space. It's fully under my seat, I replied calmly. And it's medical, she scoffed. Everyone says that. I felt my jaw tighten, but said nothing. Confrontation was the last thing I needed. Evan stirred slightly, sensing tension. The woman leaned back, muttering something under her breath. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. About 20 minutes later, Evan shifted uncomfortably. Dad, he whispered, I feel sick. I reached for the pouch automatically. It wasn't there. For a split second, my brain refused to process it. I checked again, under the seat, beside my leg, in the pocket. Nothing. My heart slammed into my ribs. No, I muttered. No, no, no. I stood abruptly, panic surging through me. Sir, please remain seated. A flight attendant called gently from the aisle. My son's medication is gone, I said, my voice already shaking. It was right here. The flight attendant's expression changed instantly. Gone how? Missing. It was under my seat. Evan was breathing faster now, his hands trembling. I knelt beside him. It's okay, I lied. Well, find it. The flight attendant crouched too. Sir, what kind of medication? Leukemia meds, I said. Saying the word out loud made it heavier. He needs them now. Her eyes widened. I'll notify the lead attendant. Stay here. She hurried away. I scanned the surrounding seats wildly. Passengers were watching now, whispering. That's when I saw her again. The woman from behind, clutching a black pouch on her lap. My pouch. My blood went cold. I stood and stepped into the aisle. That's my son's medication. She looked up slowly, annoyed. Excuse me? You took it, I said, pointing. That bag belongs to us. She rolled her eyes. I didn't take anything. I moved it. It was in my space. That's prescription medication for a child with cancer, I said, my voice rising despite myself. Give it back. Now. Several heads turned. The cabin buzzed with tension. She crossed her arms over the pouch. I'm not handing over a suspicious bag mid-flight. You could have anything in there. My hands shook. My son is immunocompromised. He needs those meds. She smirked. Then you should have checked them properly. Something inside me snapped. Not into violence, but into raw, helpless fury. A second flight attendant arrived, followed by the lead attendant, a tall man with a calm but firm presence. What's going on here? He asked. She's stolen my child's medication, I said. The woman scoffed. I secured an unattended bag. That's airline policy. That bag was under my seat, I shot back. You watched us the whole time. The lead attendant held out his hand. Ma'am, please hand over the bag. She hesitated. I don't feel safe doing that. The attendant's voice hardened. This is no longer a request. She reluctantly passed the pouch over. I grabbed it immediately, hands fumbling as I opened it. Everything was still there. Thank God. I pulled out the pills, gave Evan the medication with shaking hands. He swallowed with difficulty, eyes glassy. Good job, buddy, I whispered, stroking his hair. Around us, passengers murmured angrily. Someone muttered, "What kind of monster steals a kid's meds?" The woman stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. The lead attendant turned to her. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us to the galley." "What? For what?" She snapped. "For interfering with medical equipment and endangering a minor." Her face went pale. "I didn't endanger anyone," she protested loudly. "I was protecting the plane." The attendant didn't argue. "Please come with me." As they escorted her away, she twisted around and pointed at me. "This isn't over." I didn't respond. I was too busy holding my son, feeling his breathing slowly steady. 10 minutes later, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're currently coordinating with federal authorities regarding an onboard incident. Please remain seated." Federal authorities. My stomach dropped. The lead attendant returned, kneeling beside me. "Sir," he said quietly, "we've contacted the ground. Because of the nature of the incident and the theft of critical medication, the FBI has been notified." I blinked. "The FBI?" He nodded. "She has data history." I glanced toward the galley. The woman was seated there now, flanked by crew members, her earlier arrogance replaced by visible panic. "What happens now?" I asked. The attendant met my eyes. "They may board mid-flight." Evan looked up at me, scared. "Dad." I forced a smile. "It's okay, buddy. You're safe." But inside, my heart was racing again. Not just with fear, but with something else. Justice. At 30,000 feet, with nowhere to run, the woman who thought she could bully, steal, and endanger a sick child was about to learn how seriously the world takes that kind of cruelty. And the flight wasn't even halfway over yet. By the time the seatbelt sign chimed off again, the cabin no longer felt like a plane. It felt like a courtroom where everyone knew a verdict was coming, and no one wanted to be the one on the wrong side of it. Ethan slept fitfully against my shoulder, his breath shallow, but steady. The nurse had checked his vitals twice since the confrontation, her calm presence a thin shield against the rising anxiety in my chest. I kept my hand over the pouch strapped across me. Empty now, except for the faint imprint where the medication had been. The space felt louder than the engines. Across the aisle, the woman Karen, as she had introduced herself with that brittle, practiced smile, sat stiffly, arms folded, chin high. She stared straight ahead, jaw set, as if the clouds outside might validate her version of events. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't even looked at Ethan again. Her confidence hadn't cracked. It had calcified. The lead flight attendant, Rosa, leaned toward me and spoke quietly. "We've alerted ground. They're coordinating with federal authorities." "Federal?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded. "The medication you described, controlled, prescribed, critical, combined with interference during a medical transport. It escalates things." I swallowed. Part of me recoiled at the word. Another part felt a fragile relief. When your child's life depends on something someone else took, escalation stops being scary and starts being necessary. Rosa straightened and addressed the cabin over the intercom, her voice steady and professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your patience. For safety reasons, we will be meeting authorities upon landing. Please remain seated when instructed." A ripple moved through the plane, heads turning, murmurs rising. Someone behind me whispered, "Authorities?" Another voice hissed, "What happened?" Karen shifted in her seat. For the first time since this began, she glanced around, reading the room. The eyes on her weren't sympathetic. They weren't even curious anymore. They were sharp. The man in the window seat beside her leaned away, subtly creating space. She noticed. Her lips tightened. We hit a patch of turbulence. The plane shuddered, trays rattling. Ethan stirred, his brow furrowing. I pressed my palm gently to his back, whispering his name until his breathing settled. The nurse checked the 4-line, adjusting it with practiced care. "You're doing great," she murmured to him, to me, maybe to both of us. Karen suddenly raised her hand. Rosa was already halfway down the aisle. When Karen snapped, "I need to speak to the captain. Now." Rosa stopped, met her eyes, and didn't flinch. "Ma'am, you've already spoken to me. Please remain seated." "This is ridiculous," Karen said, her voice sharp enough to cut. "I'm being treated like a criminal for trying to maintain order. That child was—" "Enough," Rosa said quietly. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. "You've said enough." Karen's face flushed. She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing, perhaps for the first time, that the power she wielded so freely in HOA meetings did not travel at cruising altitude. Minutes stretched. The plane droned on. Outside the window, the sky remained indifferent, blue, endless, serene. Inside, every sound felt amplified. The hum of engines, the rustle of seatbelts, the scratch of a pen as the nurse wrote notes on a clipboard. A chime sounded. The captain's voice came through, calm and measured. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We will be descending shortly. For your safety and the safety of others, please remain seated upon landing until directed by the crew. Thank you." Karen's foot tapped once, twice, then stopped. When the wheels touched down, the cabin exhaled as one. Applause broke out, soft at first, then louder, an instinctive release of tension. It faded quickly when the plane taxied past the terminal and came to a stop in a remote area instead of a gate. Rosa returned to my row. "Stay seated," she whispered. "They're coming aboard." The door opened, not to the jet bridge, but to a stairway. Two men in dark jackets climbed up first, followed by a woman with a badge clipped to her belt. Their presence changed the air. Conversations died mid-sentence. The woman spoke with the captain at the front. Then she turned, scanning the cabin. Her gaze landed on Rosa, who nodded toward Karen. The agent walked down the aisle with purpose. She stopped beside Karen's seat. "Ma'am," she said evenly, "I'm Special Agent Morales. Please stand up." Karen laughed, a brittle, disbelieving sound. "This is absurd. I haven't done anything illegal." "Please stand up," Morales repeated. Karen hesitated, then rose. Her shoulders were still squared, but something in her eyes had shifted, calculation replacing certainty. Morales gestured to the overhead bin. "We're going to need you to open your bag." Karen's chin lifted. "I want a lawyer." Morales nodded. "You're entitled to one. Open the bag." Karen's hand trembled as she reached up. The zipper sounded too loud as it opened. Morales watched closely as Karen rummaged, then froze. There it was, the insulated pouch. White label, pharmacy seal intact, Ethan's name printed clearly across the front. A collective gasp rippled through the cabin. Morales took the pouch gently, examined it, then turned to the nurse. "Is this the medication?" "Yes," the nurse said, her voice firm. "That's it." Morales nodded. She turned back to Karen. "You are being detained for theft of prescription medication and interference with medical care. Please place your hands behind your back." "This is a mistake," Karen protested, her voice rising. "I was protecting the cabin. He was taking up space." Morales' expression didn't change. "Hands. Behind. Your back." The cuffs clicked closed. The sound echoed like punctuation. As Karen was led forward, she twisted, eyes searching the cabin for allies. She found none. Faces stared back, some angry, some stunned, some quietly satisfied. As she passed our row, she stopped short. "This is your fault," she hissed at me. "You're exaggerating. He wasn't that sick." The nurse stepped between us before I could respond. Morales' voice cut in, steel-edged. "That's enough." Karen was escorted off the plane. Silence followed, heavy, then slowly lifting as breath returned to lungs. A woman across the aisle wiped her eyes. Someone murmured, "Thank God." Rosa came back, crouching beside me. "The medication will be administered immediately," she said. "You did everything right." I nodded, throat tight. The nurse prepared the dose, her movements precise. As the medication flowed, Ethan's breathing eased, his color improving almost imperceptibly but undeniably. He opened his eyes and looked at me. "Did we land?" "Yeah, buddy," I said, smiling through the ache. "We landed. What happened to the lady?" I considered the question. Then I chose honesty, tempered with care. "She made a bad choice, and now she has to face it." Ethan nodded, satisfied, and drifted back to sleep. Outside, lights flashed against the fuselage, red, blue, then gone. The agents returned briefly to speak with the captain and Rosa. Paperwork was signed. Statements were taken. Through it all, the cabin remained subdued, respectful, as if everyone understood they'd witnessed something more than an inconvenience. When we finally taxied to the gate, passengers stood slowly, deliberately. Several stopped by our row. A man pressed a small card into my hand. "If you need anything," he said quietly. A woman squeezed my shoulder. "Your son's a fighter." I thanked them. Words inadequate. As the plane emptied, Rosa lingered. "I'm so sorry you went through that," she said. "But you protected your child." "So did you," I replied. She smiled, tired but sincere. When the doors finally closed behind us and the ambulance crew took over, I glanced back once at the rows of seats, the quiet aisle, the place where entitlement had collided with consequence at 30,000 feet. And for the first time since the meds disappeared, I felt something like hope settle in my chest, fragile, hard-earned, and real. The cabin felt different after the FBI agents led Karen away. It wasn't relief exactly, more like a stunned quiet, the kind that settles in after something irreversible happens. Conversations stayed hushed. Even the engines sounded softer, as if the plane itself was holding its breath. My son lay curled against my chest, finally calm. The medication, his medication, was back where it belonged, locked in a hard-sided medical case the agents had provided. His breathing was steadier now, though every rise and fall of his chest still held my full attention. "You did good, buddy," I whispered, brushing his hair back. His eyes fluttered open briefly. "Daddy, are we safe?" He murmured. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "We're safe." Across the aisle, a flight attendant, Lena, according to her name tag, knelt beside us. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "The captain wanted me to tell you," she said gently. "We've been cleared to continue to Denver." The FBI confirmed everything midair. There will be medical staff waiting at the gate. I nodded. "Thank you for believing us." She shook her head. "I should have stopped her sooner." "I'm sorry. You stopped her when it mattered," I replied. She squeezed my shoulder and stood, restoring order with quiet efficiency. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, easing everyone back into routine. But nothing about this flight would ever be routine again. 2 rows back, a man leaned forward and spoke softly. "Sir, if you need anything at all, just say the word." Others nodded. Someone passed us a bottle of water. Another offered a blanket. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. Karma had already arrived at cruising altitude. We landed just after sunset. The moment the wheels touched the runway, a ripple of applause moved through the cabin. Not loud, not celebratory, but respectful. The kind reserved for moments when people witness something deeply wrong and see it corrected in real time. As the plane taxied, flashing lights appeared outside the windows, airport security, paramedics, federal vehicles waiting with doors open. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience and cooperation today. We'll be deplaning momentarily. For one family on board, medical personnel will assist first. Please remain seated." My son stirred as the plane slowed. "Are we there?" he asked sleepily. Yes, I said. And you're going to get help right away. He smiled faintly. That smile alone was worth everything that had happened. The door opened, and the cool night air swept in. 2 paramedics boarded immediately, followed by an FBI supervisor in a dark jacket. He gave me a respectful nod. Sir, we're ready when you are. They escorted us off first. As we stepped into the jet bridge, I caught a glimpse of Karen one last time. She stood farther down the corridor, wrists cuffed, face pale and hollow. The confidence that once filled her posture was completely gone. She avoided my eyes, staring at the floor as an agent spoke quietly into a radio beside her. For a brief moment, I felt something close to pity. Then my son coughed lightly, and the feeling vanished. Some lines, once crossed, erase sympathy forever. At the terminal, a pediatric oncology team waited with a gurney and portable monitors. They moved with practiced urgency, checking vitals, confirming dosages, asking precise questions. Medication interruption duration? One asked. 23 minutes total. I answered immediately. We resumed as soon as it was recovered. She nodded. Good. That matters. They transferred him gently, securing him with care that felt reverent. You did everything right, another doctor said to me as we walked alongside. You'd be surprised how many parents freeze in moments like that. I didn't have the luxury, I replied. He gave a small, understanding smile. Hours later, in a quiet hospital room washed in soft blue light, my son slept peacefully. The 4-pump hummed steadily, a sound ID learned to associate with hope. I sat beside him, exhaustion finally catching up, my hands trembling now that the adrenaline had faded. A knock came at the door. The FBI supervisor stepped in, holding a tablet. I wanted to update you personally. I stood. Please. She's being charged federally, he said. Interference with critical medical treatment, theft of prescription medication, child endangerment, and obstruction. Her HOA status won't help her here. I exhaled slowly, tension draining from my chest. She claimed she thought the medication was dangerous, he added, that it violated airline safety. Did you tell her what it actually was? I asked. Yes, he said, multiple times. She took it anyway. Silence settled between us. You're not in any trouble, he continued. On the contrary, the airline is reviewing policies because of this incident. Good, I said simply. He nodded. One more thing. If you're willing, your statement could help prevent this from happening to another family. It'll do whatever it takes, I replied. He offered his hand. Your son's lucky to have you. I shook it, throat tight. So am I. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds as my son woke. Dad, he said softly, blinking. Did the mean lady go away? I smiled. Yes. She won't bother us. Or anyone again. He nodded, satisfied. Good. I didn't like her. Neither did the justice system. Weeks later, life began to feel almost normal again. Karen's case made national news. Not sensationalized, but sobering. Legal experts called it a landmark example of consequences for entitlement crossing into criminal harm. Her HOA removed her name from every record within 48 hours. No one defended her. And for the first time since my son's diagnosis, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not because karma struck, but because it arrived in time. Because people spoke up. Because systems worked. Because a child lived. Sometimes, justice doesn't wait for the ground. Sometimes, it boards mid-flight, at 30,000 feet, and it doesn't miss.